Hi everybody, my name is Meredith. Today I'm going to do a video that's a little bit outside of the norm for me. I've been super into the idea of AI and just the bioethics of that. So the idea of AI is really fascinating to me, but what's even more fascinating slash upsetting is the idea of AI not just taking over computational tasks and, beating world famous chess players, but this is a whole other level. When a computer can take over true creativity. And I don't know exactly what I mean by true creativity because we've never had a computer that can actually reach that level before. The human brain is uniquely able to create and to take elements and to make something new, make something that didn't exist before. So to have a computer program that can create poetry and novel ideas based on a prompt is really terrifying. There's a lot of questions wrapped up into this. I think it's a fascinating topic. But today we're not going to quite get into all of that philosophy. Instead, we're going to play around with the AI. The real vision of this video is to see if the AI can come up with meaningful stories and basically to see how best to prompt it to do that. And we're going to try a couple different methods of trying to get it to generate interesting and novel story ideas. So that's really the thing that I'm thinking about here is like, can it create something novel, something innovative, something truly creative? Something that I don't recognize, that I think this is interesting. This has a hook, something with meaning, where there's actual themes in a way that I feel like if I read to the end of that book, I would take something away from it. So we're going to see if an AI can give that to us, and I kind of hope that it can't, but also I'm willing to be impressed. I have never tested this out myself, so this is pretty interesting. Okay, I'm gonna try to give it just something completely made up. Outline a story where a girl who discovers she can see the future in her dreams meets someone she has seen die in the future. I kind of like that. Okay, once upon a time, there was a young girl named Sophia who had always been plagued by vivid and disturbing dreams. One day, Sophia discovered that her dreams were not just random nightmares, but visions of the future. So she could see things happening before they actually occurred. As Sophia began to hone her ability, she started to have a recurring dream of a young man she had never met before. In the dream, I only told it someone, I believe. I didn't say it was a young man. I said someone. Okay. Who she had never met before. In the dream, she saw him die in a tragic accident. Determined to change the outcome of the dream, Sophia set out to find the man in her vision. She searched everywhere, asking around and showing his picture to people, but to no avail. Just when she'd given up hope, she stumbled upon the man in the marketplace. His name was Michael. Excellent. Sophia was overjoyed to have found him, but she was also filled with dread, knowing that her dream of his death was yet to come. Together, they worked to prevent the accident. Sophia's ability to see the future had led her to the love of her life, and they were able to change the course of his fate. From then on, Sophia and Michael worked together to use her powers for good, helping people and saving lives. Wait, that's actually so wholesome. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's a story. Let me ask you this. What if we give it the same prompt, but I tell it that it's a tragedy? Outline a tragic story. So far, it is completely the same. That's okay. Despite their efforts, the tragic accident occurred and Michael died. As seen in her dream, she was devastated and guilty. She isolated herself and stopped using her ability as it only brought her pain and suffering. Oh no, Sophia's gift turned into a curse and she had to live with the fact that she couldn't change the future. No matter how much she wants to change the future, she can't. Well, that's certainly a tragedy. That sounds like a villain backstory. I kind of like it. That's a downward character arc and it's kind of fun. There's definitely a lot lacking in like the fun and games portion where it's like, okay, so she's just searching for this guy and can't find him. Like if that's kind of the fun and games, I don't really see where our B story character comes in because she's just like alone when she's searching, but then eventually she finds Michael. So I think probably the story really takes off when she finds Michael. What I'm seeing here is that like it's totally capable of coming up with a story, right? Like something with a beginning, definitely a middle, a driving goal. It's got stakes, right? Like this guy's gonna die. If it's a tragedy, of course, then it's kind of inevitable that he dies at the end, but there's no catch. There's not a lot of surprise. There's not anything in here that adds an element of intrigue that I didn't already give it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, definitely it's impressive. I could be more impressed. And that could, again, just be me not giving it an interesting enough prompt, but I thought that that was pretty interesting. Let's try the idea of tropes. If we give it some interesting tropes, let's see what it does. I'm asking it to make up a story premise that includes a mysterious weapon, an ancient curse, and a forbidden love. Let's see. In a far off land, there existed a powerful and mysterious weapon known as the Blade of Eternity. Okay, this weapon was said to possess the power to grant immortality to the wielder, but it also was said to be cursed. That's great. Actually, I like that. Legend has it that the blade was created by an ancient sorcerer who imbued it with a curse that would bring death and destruction to anyone who possessed it. The blade was hidden away for centuries until a young prince named Alexander discovered its whereabouts. This is just actually historical fiction. Desperate to save his kingdom from an impending war, Alexander set out to retrieve the blade. As he journeyed to retrieve the weapon, he met a beautiful and mysterious woman named Isabella. The two fell in love, but their relationship was forbidden. Isabella was the daughter of a warlord who threatened Alexander's kingdom, and their love was seen as a betrayal. Despite the danger, Alexander and Isabella continued to meet in secret, knowing they could not live without each other, but their happiness was short-lived as he succeeded in retrieving the blade, and the curse began to take hold. As Alexander's kingdom prospered and he gained immortality, that's crazy. So, like, in the middle of the story, he, like, wins the war, but, like, the curse is now the next part of the story. It's like the next antagonist. Okay, as he gained immortality, Isabella and those close to him began to suffer and die. Alexander soon realized that the curse was not only affecting him, but also the people he loved in his kingdom. He must make a choice, either to keep the blade and live forever alone. Why would you do that? Nobody would choose that. Or destroy the blade and lose his immortality, but save the lives of those he loved. He ultimately decided to destroy the blade and break the curse, even if it meant losing his immortality and his love for Isabella? Since when was that part of the deal? He lost his love for Isabella? In the end, Alexander's kingdom and the people he loved were saved, but his heart was broken. He realized that true love and happiness are worth more than immortality and power, but he lost both immortality and happiness. Okay, so what happened here was the AI threw in a values conflict to make the decision for him harder. But that isn't satisfying because we haven't seen him having that conflicting value for the rest of the story. This value shows up in the idea of forbidden love, but there's nothing in the beginning of the story with the blade that would really make us think that love was on the line with the blade, because it is called the Blade of Eternity. So it's about immortality. Now, there could be a theme of like love being immortal woven in here. I'm just grasping at straws at this point. Because this is really interesting that it did this, that it knew there was something missing, right? That you needed a values conflict in order for this to mean anything, for him to make a meaningful choice here. So the values conflict is his own personal happiness and immortality versus saving the life of the woman that he loves, right? And all the people that he loves. In the end, if this was threaded through the whole story, I think this values conflict would really work. It did a lot with that. I'm really, really impressed with this. If we were in a future where writers came up with story ideas based on AI generating stories, I think I could work with this. Okay, should we give it some more tropes and just see if it keeps coming up with fun stuff? Also, this is totally taste-based, and so these tropes kind of gave more of like a fantasy vibe, and so I'm like, oh, this is more interesting to me. But this, to me, is giving a story with a hook that grabs me and looks like it actually has some interesting stuff throughout it. So we're gonna give it another set of tropes and see what happens. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going all out. So give me a story premise with an ancient monster, a doomed hero, and a succession war. This is Game of Thrones. It's literally Game of Thrones. Okay, here we go. In a far-off kingdom, there existed an ancient and powerful monster known as the Leviathan. Points off for non-originality. The monster had been terrorizing the kingdom for centuries. No one had ever been able to defeat it. As the kingdom was facing a civil war over the succession of the throne, the current king, desperate to unite the kingdom, made a bold move. He offered the position of the next king to whoever could defeat the Leviathan. Oh, it's still going. Okay. A young and ambitious prince named Henry, who had always dreamed of being a king, stepped up to take the challenge. He set out on a quest, determined to prove himself as the true heir to the throne. I'm reading, like, skipping through. As Henry journeyed, he met a wise old sorcerer who told him that the Leviathan could only be defeated by a true hero, one who was willing to sacrifice everything for the greater good. Henry, oh no. Why did I say the word doomed? Oh, Henry's not going to make it. One who was willing to sacrifice everything for the greater good. Henry, believing that he was that hero, pushed on, but he soon realized that the task ahead was much harder than he thought. But he refused to give up and kept fighting even when all seemed lost. In the end, Henry was able to defeat the Leviathan, but at great cost. He had suffered fatal wounds and knew he was dying. As he lay dying, Henry realized that true heroism is not about achieving glory or power, but about making sacrifices for the greater good. Oh my gosh. Heavy-handed on theme, but I love it. He passed on his crown and his kingdom to his brother, who would continue to rule and bring peace to the kingdom. So good. Henry's heroic sacrifice had not only saved his kingdom from the monster, but also ended the succession war, and his legacy lived on. Yeah, it's like a tragic story because he dies in the end, but also like the rest of the world gets a happy ever after because of his sacrifice. That's like a story I love. That's Braveheart. I mean, they don't get a happy ending, but you know, the self-sacrifice bit. Okay, so we're taking points off for creativity in naming and also creativity in the Leviathan being the monster. But besides that, I am pretty impressed. What I'm seeing here is that what the AI is able to do that really until now has been a uniquely human trait is to create meaningful connections between previously unconnected things and to create a larger meaning out of the synthesis of those things. Now, for a computer to be able to do that, that's honestly really, really terrifying. But I love this story. It's not a bad story. There's a lot of embellishment that would need to happen. If this AI was like used to its greatest capacity, could it actually flesh out a story that would do this premise justice? Maybe. Or maybe in a few years it'll be able to. I don't know. It's really, really able to do like a less directed story out of just a couple elements. When you try to give it more direction, it kind of falls flat. I would have preferred to be disappointed. I would have preferred to stop at the level of giving it directed prompts and having it do a bad job. That would have honestly made me come away from this feeling better. And I just don't feel better. Because I'm like, realistically, like, writers could feed it words and it could come up with this hard work that we spend like slaving over, like just brainstorming and hitting our heads against a wall. And it is getting down like the real beats that make a story meaningful. It asks the question, how relevant and necessary are human creatives? And around like intellectual property and integrity and all of that stuff, right? Like if you go to an AI and you're like, solve my plot problem, like I don't know, like does that cheapen your work? It makes me feel like yes. Now that gets into a host of other questions, like what is the purpose of creativity? You know, what is the purpose of art? What is this idea of like true creativity? Like is the creativity that computers are playing with different than the creativity that humans are using? Kind of makes me want to go write. So I might go work on my own story before an AI becomes so smart that I become obsolete. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more from me. Thanks so much for watching. Keep writing because writers are important. But anyway, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye.